nodal officers, and they are not willing to, let's say, cooperate with Indian investigation agencies by sharing their customer-related data and related evidence. So how such scenarios could be dealt in with Indian law?
A very good and controversial question. So, see, betting, India comes second across the world where we do betting and gambling, though it is illegal in the country, apart from two states, one in Goa and one in Assam. So, one in Sikkim. So, you have a right question. I'll give an example so it will get clear to you. We have this biggest betting site. What is it? Betnoir, no? Betfair. It was written by our joint CP of the Mumbai police to CERT, that's the Computer Emergency Response Team, which is the organization which is mandated to ban certain sites. Okay. This is a UK-based site. It's legal there. Now, this is the second year that request is pending before CERT. It's yet not decided to be banned. And I assure you, this site has thousands of users in Mumbai itself. Okay. So, is online betting legal in India? Gambling legal in India? It's not. Online gambling is not legal in India. But in India, there are two things. One, there should be some complainant who goes and complain, and the whole investigation starts. So, police, law enforcement rarely do some suo moto kind of arrangement when political mileage is there. So, they are getting this huge protection on this. But to answer the second question, if something goes wrong financially or there is a case against them, they are bound to give us data. They give. It's not only Google who gives data. Every other site gives data. And with the IT Act, a draconian act like IT, when Facebook and Google were not able to plead their cases in various courts, you can imagine what other sites stand a chance of winning such kind of litigation. Okay, so data is available. Data, even BlackBerry has a parallel servers. Now, people who have BBM and still with that old notion, okay, whatever we do on BBM would not be noted, recorded. BBM has a parallel server given to the government agencies. So, if they want to know any kind of chatting you're doing private or public, they will have a transcript ready for you. Okay, so be aware.
But out of the networking sites, I can certainly share that Twitter has been the most difficult to share data. And it's not just taken long, but they've really refused. Facebook has been definitely more cooperative. But yeah, it's important that how well you connect and how fast. But yeah, there are challenges in obtaining.
Question for Prashant. After the yesterday's outrage, today there's a huge requirement to amend Section 66 of the IT Act, and there is a pressure on the government to amend it. Now they are linking it to the fundamental right of a citizen to express his views through the social media. Now, if a company employee posts or anybody who posts it on the social media and you link it to a fundamental right, how will companies' internal policies be ultra-vires to the constitutional right of an employee or a vis-a-vis a citizen, and can company take action against that employee?
See, right to expression, under which there's been debate since the law has been enacted. I've been on television talking about it, various forums. First, not siding with Section 66A, let me make one thing clear. If you read our constitution, right to expression, right to express is with certain riders, with preconditions. We can't express anything and everything what we want. One point is this. Second is, as you rightly said, the policies what you make for your organization cannot be ultra vires to the constitution. You really can't do that. Okay. But the policies what you make in the organization is majorly for deterrence effect. See, we have, let me tell you upfront, we have non-compete clauses in our employee agreements. And is it enforceable? No. in our India, is it enforceable? No, but it acts as a deterrent for that guy to immediately go to the competition. Let me assure you, if a non-compete clause is there in your EA, I can at least harass you in the lower courts. But if you have that willpower to go to high court, you may come out clean because it violates our, because who is protecting our constitution are the higher courts, not the lower courts. Okay. So that deterrence is there. It will definitely can't serve as an ultra vires. So all this can, see, when you make certain rules, code of conduct, what people do is they fear that something can go wrong. That fear in them will actually make obey certain, if not culture.
Hi, my question is to Navita. The social media platform, right? So user community is the one which owns the content most of the time, right? And as we all know, there is a lot of repudiation in it, right? So no one claims to be, right? For example, if you look at Facebook or any of these social media sites, you search on Sachin Tendulkar, you will find thousands of accounts, right? What kind of problems have you seen in terms of facing this kind of repudiations while doing your investigations?
Referring about impersonation here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely impersonation, or actually hacking into your main account. We've come across quite a few investigations. Quite common, and goes back from the controls point of view, that how secured is your IT environment. Could you be more specific? What your question?
Say, for example, there are 4 accounts on same name, right? Only one of them is the legitimate account, right? Somebody has used one of those other 3 accounts, right, to cause some disruption or some damage. So under these circumstances, when you are investigating that case, right, how do you solve the puzzle? I understand that you would route till the IP address, maybe that's easy, right? From there to identifying who the real culprit is, right? How do you actually, what kind of mechanisms do you follow to get in there?
I think goes back to the digital forensics we perform. So, identifying that who could be behind those IP addresses. With help of enforcement authorities, we are able to track those people. And important, if this information, if it's an inflammatory remark, if it's a very offensive remark, it could damage the company's reputation, then comes into play is your reputational risk management. So what is your communication, if it's a corporate account which has been misused, or an employee has posted, or a customer, or a confidential information has been leaked, that you need to do the damage control. So it goes back to where we were talking about the crisis response plan, that your communication team needs to get out, investigation needs to be done, obtain the digital forensics, and take the necessary actions. But do you want to add?
So I'll add on to it. The moment an IP address is, how does the investigation flow with the law enforcement? If you have Sachin Tendulkar at gmail.com, Sachin Tendulkar, suppose 440 at gmail.com, is reported to the police. What does police do is, immediately they'll fire an request under CRPC to Google to obtain an IP address of this. They obtain 2 IP addresses. One is the creation IP address, another is the when the mail was sent, the same IP address, because both could be different. He could have created that email ID in US and fired the mail in India. So if it is US, they will not share the email ID. They say there is a treaty not to share. But if it is India, they will share the IP address. Now when you get the IP address, what would you do? Law enforcement agencies have this table made. From that, they find out which is the ISP to which this IP address belongs. Okay. So they take that IP address and fire another email to the mobile operator or the ISP asking whose IP address is this. With this, you come to know whose IP address is this. Now, there could be again various situations here. You would have done on the cyber cafe, sitting in the cyber cafe. So we get IP address of the cyber cafe or the organization. So therefore, this IT security practices you need to keep logs. So if it is an organization, they will ask you from which computer this mail was sent. And then you have to map that because you will have date and time also along with that. So you find out the date and time and give him, this was the guy and this is the probable guy. If it is cyber cafe, you see a lot of controls with cyber cafe. That's the reason a lot of cyber cafes have closed down, because there's a lot of compliance come up. Okay, so you have a CCTV there, you have a a register there, and they take your some ID and just jot it down. Those registers, they keep it for 3 years. So after 2 years, if there is a case on them, they are called with the register. At this time, this location, who are sitting on the computer number, he gives it. And if there is a photo or PAN card and all that, then you have a ready-made proof. So this is how the investigation. I can still go deeper, but then I'll require a whole class to do that.
And there are social media archiving tools which are available as well, and corporates are actively using those tools to archive the social media.
Yeah, whether the Indian law permits to seize or to look into anyone's private computer, I mean laptop, based on the suspected transaction or illegal transaction, whether the employer has, how far he has been permitted by the law to go or to seize a personal laptop. This is first question. And second is whether the Indian law permits to see all the mails that has been sent from his own mail ID and own terminal, own laptop.
Very good question. Now, under Section 77, which has been recently added in the IT Act, police have got unlimited power of confiscation. So they can confiscate, they can get into in fact, if you don't share your password with the police, there is a different punishment to you. Okay, so just for not sharing those details. So I'll share a case with you. It's a different matter that police are not that much aware. See, I'll share this in a lighter way. We have this Etisalat Telecom matter. I hope you know this 2G scam matter. Okay, so we had this Etisalat Telecom office in Malad. So when the query came from the CBI, the local police went, because they wrote, please confiscate the email servers. So 2 police on a bike, Havaldars, went to the CISO for confiscating email server. Okay, and they kept asking, I want the email server, I want the email server. And the CISO said, I can't give you, I can't give you. And finally he said, no, you have to give. So he took them in. And then he showed him, ye hai server. And it was 1.5 ton ka server, which they came to take it on the bike. Okay, because their imagination and the corporate imaginations are different. You know, when they say server, they imagine that small desktop dabba, cabin, and they'll come with all that preparation. Okay, now the things are clear. Initially, police used to confiscate only monitors and go. And they used to say, "Abhi monitor nahi hai, to kaam kaisa karega wo?" So, koi problem nahi hai. So, things have changed now. This was original days.
So we close the session.
Can I have a last
Yeah.
one? Normally when we get a statement of accounts and the last line of the document says it's a computer generated statement, needs no signature. How legally is it valid?
Excellent question. There is a case law, you get it on my site also. SBI had lost a case because of this stupidity. The IT Act and the Bankers Book Evidence Act has written clearly that any printout has to be signed by the accounts manager or the manager who is in charge when it is produced before the court of law. And going by their general habit, they produce the printout of the loan statement in a loan recovery. And by the defense lawyer argued that this can't be taken as an evidence because it was not signed. And judge agreed to that because it was not authenticated. There was no authentication mechanism. Okay. So for normal parlance to use it anywhere, it's okay. But you see, tomorrow you apply for a loan, the same bank will tell you to get a stamp and sign on it. Okay. The same bank for the other loan, he will immediately tell you to do this. So it has to be stamped and signed. Basically, it has to be authenticated.
If I go with your thoughts, so I have a question to Mr. Sanjay. If that is a state of affairs, now where does the role of an auditor comes? Because I think practitioners going and doing bank audit or corporate audits, we are just taking those printouts, stamping and signing ourselves, not getting it done from the client. And I think the awareness is not there. So how will that become a valid audit evidence in case of any frauds or any compliances?
I think a very interesting question which you ask. Even in the simple audit which we do on a bank reconciliation, you got a statement on email. And in the email statement, you just go and certify. But in few cases, the balances which is required by statutory auditor, they will send back and say you get it stamped. So I think the question is valid, but the answer is not available anywhere, at least in my knowledge, because organization trust and see whether this is an authentic mail which has come, and there is a person, this is not a generic mail which is created by somebody or it's a fake mail ID. It's an authentic mail which has come, and there are some documentary evidence which says that it has come from there, and generally accepted principle is that, although I know it's in legal terms, it has not been very well accepted, but generally this has been the practice followed in most of the industry. So third-party confirmation comes when a specific requirement comes, but by and large, it's accepted for most of the audit purpose.
I call this as IT culture, because what US follows or what other countries follow, we just bend and follow. Like say, we have this disclaimers written everywhere. Disclaimer is not a contract which is valid in Indian law. You just disclaim everything, and then you say, I have written a disclaimer. One-sided contract is not valid in Indian Contract Act. I think many of this people sitting are knowing it. But still we write disclaimers and we get away with it. Disclaimer, hai na? So this getaway is there in this IT culture. So printouts are valid. Many a times photocopies are valid without authentication. We tend to do it. So the right way of doing it is possibly you get a console and you see it online with a different auditor's login. Okay, so what you do also is accountable. Yeah. Because you may be actually seeing a lot of critical, sensitive personal data of people. So seeing it online is the best thing.
I think another rule which applies is 80-20 rule. We identify which is the critical information and what different ways you can get the confirmation about the same. So I think that can help us in getting more authentic information.
I think so. It was a good panel discussion with a lot of questions, which typically speaks for itself. That it was interesting. Thanks the panel. Thanks. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, big hand to our panelists, Ms. Navita Srikanth, Advocate Prashant Mali, Mr. Sanjay Mathur, and our very efficient moderator, Mr. Sandeep Gupta. The first thing I'm going to do is delete my Facebook account. From one panel discussion to another, we shall now turn our attention to the IA value proposition. Moderating the discussion is a person who is a qualified and certified CA, CIA, CISA, and CISSP. He has 20 years experience. Please put your hands together and welcome the Vice President, Internal Audit and Compliance, and the Head of Internal Audit at JSW Steel and JSW Group, Mr. Harish Dua. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Mr. Harish Dua.
Good afternoon, friends. Let me invite my panelist. First panelist, his name is Mr. V. Swaminathan. Mr. V. Swaminathan is a commerce graduate, a cost accountant, MBA, certified internal auditor, and CISA. He has more than 22 years of experience in internal audit. Currently, he is heading internal audit function at Godrej Group. Please hear from Mr. V. Swaminathan. My next panelist doesn't need any introduction. His name itself is an introduction for him, Mr. Rajiv Batra. Mr. Rajiv Batra is currently heading the GRC practice at KPMG. He is working with KPMG since last 7 years. Before working with KPMG, he has had that internal audit function at Coca-Cola Bottling Services. Apart from that, he was also head of internal audit. He had that management audit service at Vedanta Group. Let's hear from Mr. Rajiv Batra. The third panelist is Mr. Abhijit Sensgiri. He is a chartered accountant by professional, and he is currently heading internal audit function at Aditya Birla Financial Services. He has more than 23 years of post-qualification experience in internal audit, mostly in the financial services. Mr. Abhijit. Dear friends, since yesterday we are hearing about a lot of things about value addition. Today also the speakers in the first session talk about the value proposition, value addition. Before I start our session, I reminded of a small joke which I thought I will share with you. There was an internal auditor who had done a very good audit on HR services, HR function itself, a core function. And a lot of his observations were not palatable to the HR head. So HR head thought that what this internal auditor is that? He is a chartered accountant, he doesn't know much about the HR function, and he is trying to teach me. So to take a revenge, what he did that he organized one internal training program for top management. And then this internal auditor was also invited. And he played the oldest trick in HR function. What he did, he told 3 persons to go out from the room. Then he brought 2 glasses. He brought only 1 glass. And in the glass, there was a half fill of milk. So first he called the finance guy, the head of finance. He asked, how you describe this? The finance person said, this glass is half empty of the milk. Then he called marketing person. Marketing person says, this glass is half filled with the milk. Then he called internal auditor. He said, you done HR audit, na? According to me, one person is pessimistic, one person is optimistic. Now this is a situation. Finance guy says this glass is half empty of the milk, and the marketing guy says it's a half fill of the milk. You tell me who's correct. The internal auditor says both are incorrect, both are wrong. He said, why? He said, the liquid in the glass is phenyl, not the milk, and both are lucky that they have not drunk that. Now, we are going to start our session on that. First, I will request Mr. V. Swaminathan to come here and present on value addition proposition. Normally, whenever we think of value addition by internal audit, we think of cost reduction exercise. We think of our involvement in ERP implementation, our involvement in implementing enterprise risk management framework and other thing. But there could be some other areas, unconventional areas, where internal auditors can add value. So first, I request Mr. V. Swaminathan to make a small presentation on a topic called marketing audit. Mr. V. Swaminathan.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, IA, for this opportunity to share our thoughts through this August forum. The quick agenda here, because I have been allotted about 10-12 minutes to speak on this topic. First of all, the agenda goes, how can internal auditors demonstrate value? I just wanted to give you a small context before I get into the whole topic of marketing audit. What are the kind of value-added services that the internal auditor can provide to its organization? And specific area that's of marketing audit for today's presentation. Auditors can demonstrate value, to my mind, in four distinct ways. One, auditors being a part of the solution. Many of us stick at giving recommendations, but if you are really a part of the solution in ensuring that the recommendations get implemented, the auditors can really provide a lot of value. Secondly, the auditing by walking around. This is a concept that we practice day in and day out in the organization. Yesterday, Phil Tarling and many others talked about creating relationships with the customers. One of the important ways of adding value is to walk around, put your hands on the shoulders of the auditee, talk to him, understand his concerns, and make your audit very effective. Continuous monitoring and effective use of technology, I'm not dwelling on this because we have discussed a lot. And lastly, by providing value-added services, I'll quickly go across what kind of services that the auditors can really provide. One, specialized audits, unconventional kind of audits where the auditors can really add value. Cost reduction through improved systems. I know of many companies, including Godrej, where we effectively practice this concept of adding cost reduction through improved systems. We emphasize this word improved systems is through improving the existing process, providing better process, and thereby bringing in a set of cost reduction. Business risk assessment and mitigation measures, control assurance and continuous monitoring, IT and information security services, fraud risk assessments, and statutory and regulatory compliances. These are several areas where internal audit can add value. Going to the specific area of marketing audit, we started this concept in 1995 when Mr. Adi Godrej asked us to do something for one of our FMCG companies. You know, in FMCG, the typical practice is huge amount of money in terms of schemes and in terms of advertising budgets, huge amount of money is spent. If you look at our current turnover of 2,500 crore domestic, we must be spending about 500 plus crores on advertising, publicity, and promotions. It's a huge amount of cost. Now, somebody in the audience asked a question, are we really competent enough to audit advertising spends, marketing spends, and I can give you examples of how we have done it, and it's absolutely commonsensical kind of approach. We are not claiming ourselves to be experts, but simple steps can really put you into questioning. Yesterday there was a topic on communication, and Phil, I think, was talking about asking the right kind of questions. And to my mind, that's the whole key to do unconventional kind of audits. Look at 5 areas, and I will dwell upon 1 or 2 of them in a little detail so that I bring this perspective to you. One is, look at our distribution setup. If you look at the spread of our distribution, we are more than 1,500 distributors and almost 2-3 lakh retail outlets. If you go into rural, we would have another 10 lakh retail outlets added to it. Now, are we sure that A, the positioning of the stock, the availability of the stock, and the schemes are getting really passed on up to the last mile? Any documentation audit will never be able to give you this perspective. Because if you look at the way these schemes operate, you are on an MRP based concept. And the price that the customer pays is fixed. Unlike the whole world where there is no MRP concept, in India we have an MRP concept. So the price to the customer is fixed. And you work backwards towards what is the price the retail outlet will get, what is the price the wholesaler will get, and what is the price the company will bill to the wholesaler. And everywhere the margins are built. And you operate a scheme over and above this. Suppose you operate a 10% scheme, which is a quantity-based scheme, that if you buy 5 packs of a product, I will give you a 10%. Are you very sure that when I have actually sold the material to my distributor, it is the responsibility of the distributor to pass on this scheme to the wholesaler and the retailer? Is he really passing on, or is he pocketing it? Now you may ask me, how does it impact you? Because if the offtake does not happen, my products does not reach the consumer, the next cycle of sale will not happen. As far as the company accounting records are concerned, the first point sale is the distributor. I have sold it to the distributor and end of story. I have accounted my sale, I have considered my revenue, and I have done with it. But what happens if he does not pass on the discounts to the retail point and the retailer does not pass on to the consumer? My sales are affected. Therefore, it is very important to understand how the whole scheme gets passed on. So what do? We set up a team of 5-6 people who were put in along with the sales to actually get trained on how actually selling happens. They went up to the retail level to understand how the sales happens first. How do these sales guy go and convince the distributor? How do the distributor salesman go and convince the retailer? How does the retailer actually sell stocks to the consumer? How does the invoicing happen in this whole process? How does the scheme gets passed on? And how does the claim process come back to the company for reimbursement? And you will be surprised that there are several loopholes practically that happens in the system. Let me give you one big loophole in the system. Suppose if I want to show a huge sale in this system, I just have to dump stocks, I have to invoice stock to my distributor, and my sales bulges up. So the inventory at the distributor point is so critical to me that if I can do it one time, but I cannot do it the next time, because unless he sells it further, my sales won't happen. So the stocks get stuck in the complete channel, it gets stuck. What does the company do? So company will further introduce a scheme because his retailing is not happening. Distributor will say, I am not able to sell stock, give me more scheme. So you have already given a 10% scheme. Now the distributor has to be pumped in with another 5% scheme to sell the stock. So what are you doing? For the same set of sale, you keep on giving more and more scheme. What happens to that? Your contribution margins would actually come down. So this puts so much pressure on the supply chain that the offtakes don't really happen and stock gets stuck. If you are into a food product, this product gets further complicated because there is an expiry date. You have dumped it once. After 5 months, this stock will have to be cut and thrown up because the expiry date is nearing. You can't sell a stock. Some consumer will go to the PFA and he will complain. So it is loss, over-loss and loss. How do you bring in efficiency in the system? The best way to do is to have a replenishment process where you define how much stock at each level, how much is your final point sale, build in a replenishment model and ensure that the stocks are efficiently kept. So stock at distributor point becomes extremely important, offtakes become very important, stock returns are very important. The distributor has actually sold stock. One fine morning, the retailer will send back saying your products are not selling. It will come back to the distributor. Distributor will coolly send it back to the CFA. And it will lie at my CFA, nothing but to be destroyed. And you know what happens to the scheme? I have already passed on that scheme to him through the invoicing. When he returns back, he keeps the scheme. So there are several complications when you actually do this, and when you walk through this process, you will be surprised to find that there are several gaps that happen at the marketplace. The next area is new launches. We have found out several complications in new launches. You have launched the product, you have made an ad campaign, ad is on air, stocks are not available. Sales don't happen. The stocks are there, ad don't break up, and stocks are stuck. You can find n number of complications in a huge product launch. You would say, there were cases where we booked windows. Now windows are at retail level. We have this, if you go to any shop, you will find he has got a display counter, very displays. And in anticipation of a launch, you book that window. For more than a month, you have paid him in advance. And stocks don't come up, the windows are empty, and you keep paying the window. And if you look at all this, the whole chain is so complicated in this country that leakage of money is possible. Let me look at, I've already dealt at scheme utilization. Pricing is another big complicated system. Because I talked about the MRP and backward working, you need to constantly ensure that the margins are clearly built into the price and the price is controlled centrally. There could be several quality issues, breakage of material, damage of the product, the supplies, for example, a Tetra Pak kind of a product, the transport systems are so inefficient that they keep throwing the stock and you have damages across and you keep paying the damages. Statutory compliances, for example, if you look at Goodnight, which is a kind of an insecticide product, a repellent product, you need an insecticide license in every location where the stocks are stored, including the retail level. And if he does not take an insecticide license at that location, the stocks can be confiscated. How will we ensure up to the retail level that they have taken the license? IT systems, we have installed various IT system with the distributor point to track how much is he selling, to whom is he selling. Those IT systems have to be synced in with the main system so that I get data on what is happening on the secondaries and what is happening on the primaries. another unique feature of this process is, if there is a product which is a market leader, we have come across cases where the salesman does not even visit the market. Because he knows that just by phoning up, he can sell the stock. Because it's a market leader, products are in demand. He does not even work the market. When we actually go to these markets, we casually ask the distributors or the retail outlets, at what time, when did the sales guy actually come in? And you will be surprised to find the sales guy didn't come at all for more than a month. So this also provides us a lot of information on the competition front, on what other FMCG businesses are actually doing. And there have been many instances where we have adopted best practices based on what information we got from the market. Now, I want to touch upon two critical slides. One is this kind of audits are done with proper alignment. It is not the normal audit that we can go and start an audit. It is extremely important to have a proper alignment from the business head, the national sales manager, and the sales team. The whole chain, right from the distributor to the super stockist, to the sub-stockist, to the retail outlet, needs to be properly planned. Feedback from consumers, if possible, selectively. It has to be properly discussed with the field personnel and then reported. Before I conclude, there are some critical points that we must remember in any kind of unconventional audit like this. We are not marketing and sales experts, and we don't claim to be one. Two, this is different from a market research exercise. And many of them, when we actually discuss it, even in an internal induction forum, the marketing teams ask, are you replicating a marketing research exercise? We are not replicating a market research exercise. We are process experts, and we want to be known like that. We would review the process end to end and check whether the process as envisaged by the company is being implemented or not. That's the role that we want to play. We are not here to provide marketing teams information on whether the product is available, how much of each product is selling, how much is not selling. That's not the role. The process has to be executed in a manner that has been envisaged by the organization. We don't claim to have a complete domain knowledge completely. We do not know. At the same time, we would ask right kind of questions, focus on the process, and as I said, ask very, very logical questions. I think if we follow this simple principle, we can definitely do audits of areas which are unconventional, which can add a huge value to the organization, and which can provide a lot of inputs to the organization to improve their processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami. Now I request Mr. Rajiv Batra to come and speak on another interesting subject, which I call corporate sustainability. This is a topic which is getting a lot of momentum since last couple of years. A lot of companies are spending a lot of money on corporate sustainability. And this is one of the area which is neglected by internal auditors. So what we can do in this area, I request Mr. Rajiv to touch upon that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think very rightfully said, and I would probably thank IA for the opportunity to bring this topic from the boardroom to the IA forum. I think it's a topic on climate change and sustainability, which I'm sure you would have, a number of you would have had the independent directors talking about it. But to some extent, to my own experience, I must say I'm not an expert in this field, but I got this by leading one of the leading teams in sustainability within our firm, got to learn about this and realize that, and my context over here is that I would not say this is a value-add topic for internal audit. I think it is somewhat essential for internal audit, because as our roles demand, we have to provide assurance on the risk mitigation procedures which the organizations follow. And sustainability and climate change is a risk which the companies have to embrace. And I would talk about how in fact, most of my 10 minutes, and I'll confine to that so that we can have a good session of Q&A if time permitting, is to actually relate this risk to the business and identify how this risk is actually an opportunity if you've understood right. And we as auditors, as our responsibility to the board and executive management, need to ensure that the strategies, the processes which the organization has embraced to accept this risk is being achieved, the objective or not, to that extent. And hence, the three things which I want to cover in building this context is to say, what is sustainability? I must say that I've been kind of involved with this practice for a year now, but I still don't see that I fully, if somebody asks me to define sustainability, I will fumble with the triple bottom line and that about it. So I will try to demystify the definition of sustainability for myself and for the audience over here. We talked about how sustainability is risk, and when I use the word sustainability, I'm saying climate change and sustainability in the same breath. And what is the internal auditor's perspective on sustainability? I'll start with giving a few examples, again, to bring the relevance of risk element and relevance of this. Dell Computers. All these events, the 4 or 5 events I'm going to talk about, has happened in the last decade, and which will show you the relevance of sustainability to our businesses today. In 2010, Dell Computers, Greenpeace had a movement against Dell Computers for the use of toxic material in the computers. And this toxics includes the BFR, the vinyl PVC. Because of their non-disposal or non-rightful disposal, it actually results in creation of dioxin. I'm not a chemical guy, so I memorized this to put this point across to you. It forms dioxin, which is a well-known and a very serious carcinogen product, and hence hazardous to that extent. Closer to shores, Wipro, on the backdrop of significant criticism on e-waste management, their environment management team embarked upon a program in 2005, since 2005, to actually address the disposal and recycling of all e-waste of Wipro products. So imagine the initiative which the company took to address the situation created by the e-waste. And the initiative they took was they actually set up multiple centers across the country, accessible through a single hotline number for all Wipro consumers to go and deposit their Wipro products for recycling, because that was another criticism which impacted a company like Wipro. This is a known story, and I'm sure most of you would remember. The key, and closer to me because I used to work for this company, and it happens closer to the time when I was there. In 2004, the biggest raw material for Coke is water. And in 2004, because of the long drought in the south part of the country, with Chennai and in Kerala, the Kerala government refused Coke to operate in Kerala because they were withdrawing groundwater and the groundwater table had dropped. So that is actually you think about it, and Coke had set up a greenfield plant over there. See the amount of investment the company had done, and they could not manufacture Coke, that investment going down the drain. And as we speak right now, the Coke sustainability team set up a water stewardship program, which include various initiatives, which included covering from the perspective of increasing awareness about water conservation. They obviously still needed water, but they actually need to bring water back. So their goal is that they will give back water more than what they withdraw from the natural resources through the water stewardship program, which is why now Coke is leading in the water stewardship and obviously doing well and operating in Kerala as well. Finally, a few other examples. Tata, when they were setting up Tata Steel, but they were setting up Orissa plant, the port in Orissa, and they got some flack from Greenpeace because they were actually resulting in one of the rare turtles, olive ridley turtle, inhabitant was being jeopardized, and Greenpeace had significant movement. In fact, much criticism went to the Pac-Man-like game which Greenpeace came up. So again, the cause of reputation to a brand like Tata caused because of the impact. I'm not going to elaborate more to say that right or wrong, but that's what the impact was. And finally, very quickly talking about on the child labor, and I think this is also again a decade ago, whereby Nike and GAP were actually criticized for use of child labor in the developing countries like India, Bangladesh, and China for producing their products, and the reputational damage the companies face on account of that. So all this, when I talked about climate change sustainability, is not about climate, not about resources, natural resources, it's also about social issues around social unrest, which can cause about child labor or social inequality. So social inequality and the CSR initiatives which the companies take are also addressing the sustainability and climate change issue. And more recently, if some of you would have noticed this, on the 17th cover page of Ecotimes, and I was reading and I thought it was very relevant, the Climate Change Vulnerability Index identifies 6 key cities in India as the top 25 most vulnerable cities in the country, in the world. And why they're vulnerable? Because of urbanization, population growth, constraint and use of resources, excessive resources, and their lack of preparedness to cope with disaster. So what this means is that companies operating in these cities, the headquarters, in the event, eventually, whenever it happens, the businesses can get shut. And all this addresses the issue, main issue I'm talking about is sustainability. And why in that case, as auditors, we should not be aware of it? This is a study which KPMG did last year and actually identified 10 sustainability mega forces which will impact business in the next 20 years. And if you look at these, so this is what we talk about, reasons why climate change and sustainability is a risk we can't close our eyes to as professionals, because it impacts our business. And why we are talking about it, and I'll just take about 2 more minutes, I know I'm conscious about the time, 2 more minutes on this. In the last 20 years, the population has grown 1.5 billion in the last 20 years, since 92. But the resources consumption which we are using has been much higher than the 1.5 billion population. The growth of resource consumption has been high. Because of the fact, I think I heard about the speakers talk about why the BRICS is enjoying the economic growth is because we are now staying in a globalized, interconnected digital world. Everyone's connected. That means the companies we operate in could be a supply chain anywhere in the world. We could be a supply chain for a country elsewhere. Because of the interconnectivity, there's a cheap access to finances, there's cheap access to resources and people. Resources move across continents, there are no more boundaries anymore. As a result of which, the BRICS countries, the developing countries have enjoyed. And as a result of this, close to 1 billion people in this 20 years, I'm talking about 1.5 billion population growth, close to 1 billion people have moved to cities. So we should feel happy because we removed the poverty element for them. So we've removed poverty, but what it resulted in? Increased in urbanization. And we all know what state Bombay is in that. Increased urbanization, and thus we got more and more people from the poor classes to middle classes. We all know why, we all go and say that Indian economic growth is back to the young population and because of the high middle class. But this middle class is consuming more. This middle class, in fact, in the last 20 years, the final statistics, which was done by the World Wildlife Fund, in the last 20 years, we have consumed 50% more than what Earth has given back. So we are living outside our means. That's the problem. So the businesses, and I'm saying I'm not trying to throw the bad picture, businesses are aware of this problem. And businesses are understanding the relevance of this problem because this problem is going to cause not just the fact that we will have more sandy storms or more droughts and all the climate change. It is going to have a direct impact in the way we do business if we are not conscious about our fossil fuel consumption, if I may talk about that. If our resources on non-renewable, reliance on non-renewable continues to be high, the cost of these will go up. There will be scarcity of resources. Why only fossil fuel or coal? We will have to find the cost of doing business is going to go up. The availability is going to be challenged. While some companies have appreciated this challenge and have addressed this through they have embraced this challenge into an opportunity. And I'll give you examples how. We now hear about 5-star rated products. That's the business strategy changing to say we want to be in the market not for the reason we want to look social, because that's the need of the hour, because we have to save our planet, and hence Light starts selling 5-star rated products for energy efficiency. Slowly, the people in the room, I'm sure when you go to do shopping for your ACs and refrigerator, you look at the star ratings because it impacts you, because it saves your energy. Plus, you're saying that is my way of giving it back, and hence companies who've not aligned the business, keeping in mind the strategy, will be left behind. Another example, companies are, in fact, I'll talk about that a little later. Companies have started developing bio-blocks for water-free sanitation. Companies are innovating detergent which are less consuming water. This is happening. In fact, you must have seen in TV. There are paint companies which are producing paints which have no smell. It is because they're using lesser of those products, and hence they're using this is the cases where companies have aligned the business strategy to get a competitive advantage out of this risk, or what is called sustainability. And as I said, I'm wary of the time, and I'll give just 2 more minutes to talk about it. I won't finish the presentation. So sustainability, just to define what sustainability is all about. Sustainability is the approach that creates long-term stakeholder value by managing risk and embracing opportunities through optimization of economic, environment, and social bottom lines. The reason I wanted to this will be the last slide to talk about the 3 Ps. We all know about the profit P. The other 2 Ps of the triple bottom line, which we are going to talk about, is all about people and planet. So triple bottom line concept was introduced in the US in the early 90s, where it says, in order to assess the performance of an organization, not only on the net profit and the return on investment, let's assess the performance on the 3 dimensions of environment, social, and economic. Now, to give an example of what do you mean by environment, environment obviously means what parameters you want to assess in terms of giving it back to the environment in terms of fossil fuel consumption, energy efficiencies, and some of the examples I'm talking about is wastewater or recycling. So these are the parameters. These are non-financial parameters. Similarly, economic and social. In the social, to give an example, is about women empowerment. How much of the labor you have is biodiversity within your force. In terms of quality of living conditions you give to your employees. So these are certain values. Now, the triple bottom line gives you guidelines on how you want to report. They doesn't prescribe any formats of reporting. There are a number of companies in India today. There are close to 60 to 65 large companies who are doing this reporting, not because driven by any mandate. Yes, effective, as you all know, effective 31st December, all financial reports which have year-end after 31st December, which are top 100 listed companies, have to do minimalistic reporting around sustainability as per the SEBI guidelines. So in some form, India is bringing that. But even before SEBI brought this, there are 60 Indian companies who are doing this triple bottom line. So the point I'm making in the last statement, as I said, we can do this in the Q&A. My last statement is, we as auditors, as I said, our responsibility, internal auditors, is to the organization to firstly identify and understand what are the sustainability risks which our organization might face. What are the measures our organization are taking in terms of addressing the goals they have put in outside to achieve the sustainability objectives. And most importantly, if the organization are choosing to do a sustainability reporting, unlike the financial reporting which has ERPs which are well controlled, all the parameters are still outside ERPs. There are not many companies who are following ERPs for non-financial reporting. And if the stakeholders, which are the reader of these financial statements and the triple bottom line, are going to rely on the statement, to that extent, we need to ensure as auditors that the quality of processes of data identification and its presenting to the stakeholders is accurate and timely. So to that extent, and we'll talk more about on the other areas where internal auditors get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Now I invite Mr. Abhijit to talk about another topic which was a lot of talk going on yesterday on that, and that is audit of ethics. How can we do audit of ethics?
I think Rajiv in his presentation covered one aspect of ethics, which was human rights, which he talked about child labor. I think one more aspect of a fundamental human right is the right to have the lunch on proper time. So with due cognizance of that, I'll come directly to the point of audit and start immediately and be as concise as I can. Ethics was, the issue was already brought up by various speakers yesterday and today. Ethics can be from the point of view of the internal auditor. I think Mr. N.G. Shankar brought that point out when he spoke of the 4 principles of IIA of competency, confidentiality, objectivity, and integrity. Again, in the session on our auditors, rockstars, I think this point was brought about with whether in any organization, whether a formal audit of ethics has happened, and 2 issues which were brought out